Hey, my name is Erin Bell. I'm doing my oral presentation on Louisa May Alcott and her work, The Brothers. The Brothers is based during the Civil War. The Civil War was a war between the North and the South that lasted about 4 years and pit brother against brother and divided families. An article by Victoria Holder states that the Civil War was the first modern war. It used submarines and ironclad vessels, and the firearms had more accuracy and were more potent than wars in the past. Holder mentions the use of the Springfield rifle. The Springfield rifle used an ammunition called the mini ball. The mini ball was more accurate and had a range of 250 yards, but had a kill range of up to half a mile. When on impact, it would cause a large gaping hole and could cause bones to shatter and tear ligaments. The mini ball ammunition is responsible for 94% of all injuries sustained during the Civil War. Injuries that were sustained to the abdomen, head, neck, and chest were almost always fatal. Extremity wounds, such as arms and legs, 9 times out of 10 required amputation. According to Holder, 29,000 amputations occurred during the Civil War. Of those, 7,000 resulted in death. Common medications that were used during the Civil War were whiskey, quinine, opium and morphine, digitalis and paregoric, arsenic and strychnine, both of which we consider poisons today, and chloroform for surgery. According to Smith's Military Medical History, the American Civil War, prior to the war, hospitals were considered charities that the poor went to when they were ill. There were no hospitals set up prior to the war to take care of the wounded and injured during the war. They would use whatever building they could find. Both Smith and Holder's articles speak to the fact that disease and illness killed more people during the Civil War than actual wounds sustained on the battlefield, which led to the 1862 passing of the Medical Department Reform Act by Congress, which helped to monitor sanitary conditions in the hospitals. It required 2 matrons per every 100 patients. Those matrons were responsible for the care, feeding, cleaning, and every aspect of those patients, and those matrons would have people who would work under her, but she was ultimately responsible for their care. Battlefield triage were set up, field hospitals were managed, hospital ships were managed, and general hospitals were set up as well. They also set up an ambulance service that would charter people from station to station pretty much. After the Emancipation Proclamation, a governor in Massachusetts, John Andrews, enlisted 1,000 black soldiers into the Union Army. Part of them made up the 54th Massachusetts Infantry. The 54th Massachusetts Infantry was led by Captain Robert Shaw. And they proved themselves at the Battle of James Island, in which, according to Robin's article, the 54th fought like heroes. This earned them a spot spearheading the assault on Fort Wagner outside of Charleston. On July 18, 1863, the 54th Massachusetts Infantry led the assault on Fort Wagner, which ended poorly for the Union Army. The 54th lost 247 men. And Robin's article goes on to talk about how the 54th Massachusetts Infantry fought fiercely. Louisa May Alcott was born November 29, 1832. She began writing imaginary stories at the age of 12, mainly out of entertainment for her sisters and friends. Her first major literary work was hospital sketches, which she got from her time she spent as an army nurse, and be it short time, which she developed typhoid fever and had to come home. and get well from her illness. Little Women was probably her most famous work. It was published into 2 volumes in 1868 and 1869. Louisa May Alcott passed away March 6, 1888. The brothers. Miss Dane was a Union nurse working in a hospital when one of the doctors came to her and asked her if she would care for a rebel soldier that nobody else would touch. She, of course, said she would, so he gave her a mulatto or a contraband man to help her care for the man with typhoid fever. It turned out that the mulatto man, Bob, and the rebel soldier, who was Ned, were half-brothers. Bob was intent on killing Ned for all the wrongs that he had done to him along the way. Miss Dane was able to talk him out of killing Ned. And so Bob went his way and ended up in the 54th Massachusetts Infantry. Ned recovered from his typhoid fever and ended up back with his unit in the rebel army. Bob and Ned eventually met up at the Battle of Fort Wagner, where they eventually killed each other. Miss Dane was there before Bob eventually passed away, so she was able to see him again. Siegel's article, Compassion for Your Enemy, really touched on compassion and how nursing really is. In her article, she states, Alcott's war stories paint a bleak picture of the painfully obvious, the medical and social horror of war. But Alcott's insight penetrates further, pointing out that although doctors prescribe, the actual caring of the patient is provided by the nurse. Ironically, it is the nurse's healing care that allows the men to be dispatched back to the front lines, only to become casualties again. She really pointed out how much things needed to change, how many patients that nurses had in those wards, and how it doesn't matter where you come from, you still have to take care of somebody. They still deserve a caring attitude. It doesn't matter if you're from the enemy camp, or if you're a prostitute or a IV drug user. Everybody deserves the same care. It just really touched home with me, considering that I'm a nurse. But if y'all have any questions, feel free to message me. Thank you.